The shift had started like any other. The kind that blurred into the one before it. I had barely taken off my jacket when the board lit up with new arrivals, half of them flagged with red tags that would mean hours of blood work, triage, and notes no one would read twice. I pulled my hair back, sanitized my hands for the second time in 5 minutes, and walked into the chaos like I always did. Efficient. Detached. Not cold, but practiced. I didn't notice his name at first. Just the room number. 212. A standard admission. Motorcycle accident. Minor trauma. I skimmed the chart like I'd skimmed 1,000 others, already reaching for the gloves before I opened the door. He was sitting upright, shirt off, gauze pressed to the side of his ribs. His jeans were still on. His left knee was elevated on the edge of the bed, a half-dried trail of blood down his shin. There was a shallow scrape across his collarbone and dirt along his arm like he'd dragged part of the road home with him. He looked at me when I entered. Not the way patients usually do. Not with panic or desperation or performative flirtation. He looked at me like he was trying to decide something. I asked how bad the pain was. He said manageable, then added that his ego was worse off than his body. I gave a small nod, barely smiled, and told him I'd need to clean the wounds before the doctor came in. He watched my hands while I worked. Quietly. Closely. Like the rhythm of what I was doing mattered. I focused on the knee first. The skin was broken but not deep. I cleaned slowly, carefully, conscious of the sharp inhale when the antiseptic hit. His muscles tensed under my fingers. Not from pain, entirely. From something else. When I glanced up, his eyes were already on me. I didn't say anything. I kept working. But I felt the shift. That almost imperceptible hum that moves between bodies when one notices something neither of them is supposed to say out loud. There was heat in the room. Not from fever. From proximity. His voice broke the quiet, low and calm. He said I had hands that didn't match the rest of me. I looked at him then, confused. He said they were gentle. The way I touched people. Like I was afraid of being the thing that hurt them. I didn't respond. I just told him to stay still while I wrapped his knee. But my hands weren't steady. And his weren't clenched. He just watched me. Like maybe he'd already seen this story once, and knew exactly where it would go. The morning after, I told myself it was nothing. Just a patient like any other. Just a routine checkup. Just another pair of eyes too observant for their own good. But when I looked at the board and saw room 212 still filled, something shifted under my skin. Like the rest of the hospital had faded a little around the edges, leaving only that one room in focus. I walked in with purpose. Clipboard ready. Gloves on. He was half-sitting again, one leg draped over the side of the bed, his head turned toward the window like he was watching the light move. He didn't turn when I entered. Just said my name softly, like it was something fragile he'd been rehearsing. I told him I was here to check on his mobility. Monitor the swelling around the knee. He nodded, pulled up the leg of his jeans without hesitation, and I reached for the wrap I'd tied the day before. His skin was warm under my fingers. Too warm. I adjusted the wrap carefully, pressing along the edge of the bandage, trying not to notice the way his breath caught when my thumb brushed the soft space beside his kneecap. Then he said it. Not flirtatious. Not teasing. He said, "You move like someone trying not to leave fingerprints." I paused. He was still looking at the window. I asked what he meant, though I already knew. He said it again, a little slower. "You touch people like you're afraid they'll remember it." And then he turned and looked at me, just once, and didn't look away. I tried to hold on to the distance. The uniform. The room. The rules. But something in me folded. Not because he was handsome, though he was. Not because of the way he looked at me, though it was almost unbearable. But because no one had ever said something so quietly true. Not even me, to myself. The bandage was fine. The swelling had gone down. I had no clinical reason to stay. But I lingered. I asked if he needed anything else, and he said no. But he asked me something instead. He asked why I became a nurse. I don't remember what I told him. Only that I said it too softly, too honestly. And when I left the room, I could still feel the shape of his knee in my palms. And the way my name had sounded in his mouth. I'd worked in the same hospital for 6 years. I had watched people arrive broken and leave stitched. Some smiled on the way out. Some didn't. You learn not to get pulled in. You learn how to fold yourself into a shape that fits between the rules. That was what I told myself. But every time I walked past room 212, I found a reason to stop. Sometimes I told myself it was charting. Sometimes it was just checking on vitals, on pain meds, on progress. I told myself the nurse on the last shift must have missed something. I told myself I was doing my job. But really, I just wanted to hear his voice again. He made everything feel slower. The way he looked at me when I entered the room. The way he spoke, like he wasn't trying to impress or prove anything. Just talk. Just see. He asked me questions, simple ones, as though we were old friends catching up in a coffee shop instead of a hospital room. What kind of music I liked. What I did after shifts. What I wanted to do before I ended up here. It wasn't invasive. It wasn't persistent. It was patient. Curious. I answered more than I should have. I told him I used to draw when I was younger. That I liked bookstores and walking in neighborhoods that weren't mine. That I didn't remember the last time someone asked about those things. He just nodded, like he already knew. He told me about growing up near the coast. About his job he hated and the girlfriend who left him 6 months ago without warning. About the crash. About how he should have seen the light turning red but didn't. I listened. More than I was supposed to. One afternoon, I found myself sitting in the chair beside his bed. I wasn't supposed to. I told myself it was just for a minute. He looked tired. Not weak, just quieter than usual. He said the meds made him fuzzy, and I said maybe that was a blessing. He smiled at that. Not a wide smile. Just enough. And then, out of nowhere, he said, "I like when you sit. It makes me feel like you're here for more than the chart." I didn't answer. I didn't have to. He already knew the answer. I was. It was a night shift. The kind that drags through the hours like wet wool. Flu season had arrived early, and the hallways buzzed with the muted panic of overworked hands and understocked supplies. I moved between rooms like muscle memory, vitals, meds, smiles that didn't quite reach, but when I reached room 212, everything slowed again. He was awake. The lights were off except for the faint glow of the monitor beside his bed. Outside the window, the world was empty. Quiet. Inside, he looked like he hadn't moved in hours. But his eyes were open, and they followed me as I stepped in. I whispered his name. Asked how he was feeling. He didn't answer right away. He just looked at me like I was the only thing left that made sense. Then he said my name. Once. Soft. Unrushed. Like it wasn't a question or a command, but a sentence in itself. I hadn't realized how long it had been since I heard it spoken that way. I stood there for a moment, hands hovering above the chart, breath caught somewhere behind my ribs. He didn't repeat it. He didn't fill the silence. He let it hang there between us like a thread neither of us wanted to pull. I sat down beside him. This time, I didn't make excuses. He asked how my night was going. I told him honestly. That it was awful. That I was tired. That I'd burned my tongue on bad coffee and almost cried in the elevator for no reason at all. He laughed gently. Said he was glad I told him. Then he asked something quieter. Do you ever let anyone take care of you? I didn't answer. I couldn't. The question wasn't flirtation. It wasn't pity. It was recognition. He saw the mask. And for once, I didn't have the energy to hold it up. I leaned back in the chair, and we stayed like that for a long time. Nothing dramatic. Nothing said. Just his voice in my memory, saying my name like it belonged to me again. And the feeling that maybe, just maybe, he meant it. He needed help adjusting in the bed. That was all it was. A shift in weight. A pillow moved. And 4 line checked. I'd done it 1,000 times before. But this time felt different. His hand reached instinctively toward mine as I helped guide his leg back into a better position. The muscle was still tight from the swelling, and I could feel the heat radiating through the sheet. I kept my expression still. Professional. But my chest betrayed me. My pulse shifted. My breath grew shallow. I moved his tray table closer. He murmured a quiet thanks. When I turned to check the vitals, his fingers brushed my wrist. Not on purpose. Not lingering. But enough. Enough to feel the difference between clinical touch and the kind that lives under your skin long after it's gone. I froze, just for a moment. I looked down. His hand had already moved back. But he was watching me now, eyes focused, careful, not daring. Just open. He didn't apologize. He didn't smirk. He didn't do what other men had done before. He simply said, in the calmest voice I'd heard all day, "You don't have to pretend it's just another Tuesday." The words hit somewhere low and tender. I leaned back against the edge of the counter, trying to collect something I couldn't name. His room was too quiet. My hands were too aware. My skin felt like it remembered more than I gave it permission to. I told myself it was nothing. That I would walk out, finish rounds, and forget this moment like so many others. But when I finally stepped away, I didn't walk out fast. And when I reached the door, I heard him say it again. Not loudly. Not for drama. Just a single sentence, soft as breath. "I'm glad it's you." I didn't turn around. But I didn't forget. I told myself it was just 5 more minutes. The shift had ended an hour ago. My scrub still clung to me in all the wrong places, and my feet ached in that dull, familiar way. The kind of tired that seeps up the legs and into the spine. I should have clocked out. I should have gone home. I didn't. Instead, I walked back to room 212. His light was off. The hallway was dim and quiet, the usual rhythm of the night shift settling in, monitors beeping, the occasional echo of a distant door, the kind of silence you only find in buildings full of people trying to heal. He was awake. Eyes open. Head turned toward the window again like he was expecting me. I stepped inside without thinking. He didn't say anything. Neither did I. I sat in the same chair I'd used earlier that day, folding my arms against my chest like that could stop what I was feeling. He shifted slightly, wincing as his leg settled. I almost reached for the call button. But he waved it off with the smallest shake of his head. Then we just sat. There was no conversation this time. No banter. No questions about music or memory or whether I let anyone take care of me. There was only quiet. A long, slow quiet. And within it, something deeper. Something made not of words, but weight. The weight of 2 people realizing they didn't want the moment to end. I don't remember how long I stayed. 10 minutes. 30. Maybe more. At one point, I looked over and found him watching me. Not the way a man looks when he wants something. The way someone looks when they've already found it. I felt the heat creep into my cheeks. I turned back toward the door. I should go, I said, even though I hadn't said anything aloud. But my body didn't move. Not yet. And when I finally stood, he didn't try to stop me. He just offered the kind of smile you carry with you, even after the door has closed. I walked out slowly. The hallway felt colder than before. And I told myself I wouldn't come back tomorrow. But I knew I would. The hospital was busier that day, but room 212 still found me. He had a checkup scheduled. Minor follow-up. Just mobility. I walked in with my chart, gloves, and all the practiced calm I had carried through 100 other rooms. But the second I stepped inside, the air felt different. Or maybe it was me. He was sitting up straighter now. Healing well. The bruising had started to fade from his ribs. The color had returned to his face. But the look in his eyes, still soft, still too steady, made it harder to breathe. I asked him to extend his leg. He did. I crouched beside the bed and removed the wrap slowly, inspecting the joint for swelling, guiding his foot in a careful arc. My fingers adjusted beneath his calf, thumb pressing gently into the muscle. His breath hitched. Not from pain. From something else. I glanced up. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't playing. He was watching me. His chest rose slowly, then held. I shifted slightly, adjusting my grip. His thigh tensed beneath my hand. I told myself it was clinical. I told myself it was necessary. But when my palm brushed the inside of his knee to stabilize the joint, I felt it. The change. The sudden tension that ran through him like a wire drawn too tight. I froze. Not in fear. In recognition. Because I felt it too. That flicker of awareness. That sharp, physical hum beneath my skin. I should have moved. Should have stood. Should have turned away and said something forgettable to break the moment in half. But I stayed. For one breath too long. His hand moved, just slightly, closer to the edge of the bed, fingers curled as if they wanted to reach. But he didn't. He held still. He let me choose. I slowly stood and took a step back. My chest was tight. My mouth dry. I said the check looked good. That the doctor would be in soon. He nodded. I reached for the clipboard and turned to go, but I heard him speak again. Low. Careful. You don't have to be afraid of being felt. I didn't respond. I couldn't. Because the worst part wasn't that he had touched a nerve I buried. It was that he'd made me want to feel it again. The rain had started sometime around midnight. I could hear it through the hallway windows, tapping steadily against the glass like something trying to get in. The hospital always felt different during storms. The walls seemed closer. The silence heavier. Room 212 was quiet when I entered, but he was awake. He didn't speak at first. Just looked at me the way he always did now, like he knew I wasn't coming in just to check on his leg. I pulled the stool closer this time. Sat without pretending I wasn't staying. He didn't ask about my shift. Didn't ask if I was tired. He just sat with me for a long moment before saying something so simple it almost undid me. You always look like you're waiting for permission to be human. I tried to laugh. I tried to dismiss it, to deflect with a comment about professional boundaries or sleep deprivation. But nothing came out. I looked down at my hands, the ones he'd noticed days ago, and said the first honest thing I had said in a long time. I don't know what to do when someone actually sees me. He didn't interrupt. He didn't reach for me. He just nodded, like he knew that feeling. Like he lived in the same quiet I did. Why do you hide, Claire? It wasn't an accusation. It was a question that waited. I told him I wasn't always like this. That once, there was a version of me who laughed too loud and wanted too much and believed in all the wrong people. That I stopped showing her when it stopped feeling safe. He listened the way no one else ever had. Like the story mattered. Like I mattered. I looked up and found his eyes on me. Not searching. Not needy. Just open. He didn't say I should be different. He didn't try to rescue anything. He just said. Maybe she's still in there. Maybe she's just waiting for you to remember her. There was nothing romantic in his tone. No seduction. No promises. But something in my chest cracked quietly open. Because for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I had to be hard to be whole. I just had to stop hiding. He was being discharged in the morning. The chart said it plainly, printed in the same blue ink as everyone else's paperwork. Stable. Independent. Ready to go home. I stood at the nurse's station staring at it longer than I needed to, fingers hovering over the pen I hadn't picked up. I told myself I wouldn't go back to room 212 again that night. I told myself I'd already said everything worth saying. But an hour later, I was outside his door again. He was awake. Reading, or pretending to. The television was off, the blinds half drawn, the city pressing in behind the glass like a faded painting. He looked up and didn't smile, but something in his face softened. I closed the door gently and walked to the chair without asking. Neither of us spoke. It wasn't uncomfortable. The quiet had grown familiar now, something warm and heavy that wrapped around us when words got tired. I sat beside him and folded my hands in my lap. After a few minutes, he reached out and placed his palm over mine. There was no urgency in it. Nothing needy. Nothing wrong. Just the calm weight of someone choosing stillness with you. His hand was warm. Solid. My fingers curled into his slowly, and we stayed like that, joined at the palms, bodies angled toward each other without touching anything else. He said he didn't know what would happen next. That he wasn't expecting anything. But he was glad he met me here. I looked at our hands and thought about how long it had been since I let someone sit beside me without trying to protect the space between us. I told him thank you. Not for the conversation. Not even for the connection. But for making me feel seen again. We sat there until the monitor light blinked once, quiet and unnoticed. And when I finally stood, I let my fingers linger in his a little longer than I should have. It wasn't a goodbye. But it was an ending. And that was enough.